From inside the Banner offices along the Inner Harbor, it is the Banner Ravens podcast. Paul Mancano and Jonas Shaffer. We got a lot to talk about here today. We're going to do a position-by-position breakdown of the Ravens and Chiefs rosters and tell you who has the edge at each group. We've got an interview with Jay Binkley, who is of 610 AM Sports Radio out in Kansas City, going to give us an insider look on this Chiefs team. Then we'll give you a full preview and, of course, our score predictions for the AFC Championship game. All that and more coming up. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsors.
If you have an appetite for saving money, then you should get the Rofo Rewards app from Royal Farms. Use the Rofo Rewards app to place mobile orders for pickup or delivery and earn royalty points to redeem for free stuff. And right now, new Rofo Rewards members will get a free any-size coffee for signing up. You can download the Rofo Rewards app at the Apple App Store or Google Play today. You'll find it's a very appealing app to have. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The CIAA Men's and Women's Basketball Tournament is February 26th through March 3rd at CFG Bank Arena. Baltimore is bringing the hoops, the culture, and the energy. So grab your tickets now and book your hotel at baltimore.org/CIAA.
Jonas, before we even delve into all the topics we have to discuss today, did you go back and listen to our podcast last week and count how many Taylor Swift references I made?
About 3 times, yeah, but no. I didn't.
Wow. If you had to give a guess.
Well, I see it in the outline here, Paul, so I'm not going to play dumb.
All right, fair. It's 6. I had red, the team in red. I had blank space, filling that blank space next to the Ravens. I had the 1. Okay. When I said the 1 seed, that was just very easy. It was a layup there. Anti-hero, you laughed out loud when you heard that one. And I had out of the woods when I said Mahomes isn't out of the woods yet. And finally, all too well. Not a team they know all too well, Jonas.
We probably could have done more.
We could have. I was trying to do 22 for Kyle Hamilton, be like this 22-year-old safety.
Okay. Why didn't you?
I just failed. I just forgot. Okay. Kyle Goon gets me into a different headspace. It was just difficult.
He's intimidating.
He really is. All right, Jonas, before we do our position-by-position breakdown of the AFC Championship game, let's talk about the injury news. And Marlon Humphrey returning to practice yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, things trending up for him, things potentially trending down for Kansas City. Marlon was limited on Wednesday, hadn't practiced since he hurt that calf week 17 against the Dolphins. Obviously, we won't know until Friday what John Harbaugh thinks. He's not going to talk today, Thursday, but a good sign. Guys who typically are back in a limited fashion on Wednesday usually are well enough to play on Sunday. It's a good thing that the Ravens have this long week. If it was a Saturday game, maybe it would be a little bit more dicey. I guess just the thing you worry about there is we've seen how much he has struggled in those initial games back. The Ravens exercised some caution with Mark Andrews when he came back last week, had those full practices, 2 in a row. You wonder their confidence level with Marlon, with Ronald Darby being as strong as he is. Maybe this is a week where they say, Marlon, we want you for the Super Bowl. We are confident in winning without you, but it's going to be interesting because he is the most talented cornerback on this team. And this is the Chiefs team that really challenges defenses on the edge, especially, with their run game.
Well, Marlon Humphrey is back in practice and Jim Harbaugh is back in the NFL, Jonas, getting that Los Angeles Chargers job.
Yeah. And maybe bringing Joe Ortiz with him, the, Ravens assistant GM. Ravens play in LA next year. My prediction is that, and this is just terrible news for me or Gianna or both of us, the Ravens will play the Chargers on Thanksgiving next year. When the Ravens played the 49ers, when Harbaugh was coaching there in 2011, they made them play on Thanksgiving. Ravens won that game. It was a big game. And I think the NFL schedule makers just will not be able to help themselves. They're not one of the traditional teams that typically plays on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
But I just think if the scheduling math makes sense, there's no way that game's not in prime time. And I feel like Thanksgiving, with everything going into it and all the themes of family and love and everything, you got to put it on Thanksgiving, right?
It's so ironic. They're like two of these brothers, getting to spend their Thanksgiving together here, family. Look, if they didn't play a football game, they could have still spent the game together or that day together, and also you're pulling all of these writers and people who cover the game away from their family to build this storyline.
There's no better way to celebrate your love for your brother by trying
kicking
to
his
injure
butt.
his quarterback.
By game planning to end his career. Very exciting news to have the Harbaughs back. And I'll tell you, Jim picked that sweet spot, the Pete Carroll zone, right between a national championship in college and maybe getting hit with some kind of suspensions. You know?
Hey, man, the NCAA can't take away spots on the 53-man roster, so good for him.
This is true. All right, Jonas, let's get into these two rosters, Ravens and Chiefs, and we're going to go position by position and discuss which team has the edge. So not like offense versus defense, but quarterbacks versus quarterbacks straight up. Who would you rather have? Let's start with the quarterback position. Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Let's not factor into the backup quarterbacks here. Let's just assume that both these quarterbacks are going to get through this game healthy. At the end of this season, in February, after the NFL honors, both of these quarterbacks will each have a pair of MVPs. Mahomes has 6 Pro Bowls. He, of course, has those 2 Super Bowl rings. And this is the first AFC championship game for Lamar Jackson. Patrick Mahomes is 13-3 in the playoffs all time. Absurd numbers. 38 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, 67% completion in the playoffs. Those numbers for Patrick Mahomes are absurd. Between these two quarterbacks, they're both in the top tier. You can make a case that these are 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. But I have to give the edge to Patrick Mahomes here.
Yeah, just based on track record. I mean, in a vacuum, I think most, if not all, 32 NFL GMs would take Patrick Mahomes to win a regular season game, and probably an even higher share would take him to win a regular season playoff game if you just dropped him in on a random NFL roster. And this isn't to diminish any of Lamar's greatness this year. He's clearly been the better quarterback, the better player this year. But Mahomes, we talked about it on Monday, just has this inevitability to him. He raises his game. He's been great on the road or in tough neutral games for Kansas City over his career. You can count on him to make a play. There are definitely ways that the Ravens can challenge him, can make him look bad, that we're going to talk about. But I think if you just stack these two guys up for everything that Lamar does well, I just don't want to look like an idiot for saying that. I would rather have Lamar in a game like this, considering everything we know about Mahomes and his playoff record.
And if there are, a pair of quarterbacks who could go toe to toe with Mahomes in a playoff game, I mean, Mahomes probably just beat one in Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson, I think, would be the other one. I think that's why this matchup is so fascinating, because I think in the NFC, you're looking at 2 very good teams, but maybe not 2 of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. They're probably closer to the 5-10, 10-15 range. And so this is literally 2 of the best 3. And Josh Allen, who just got eliminated, is probably the 3rd in that category. So it's going to be high level quarterback play. And just because we're giving Mahomes the edge in this category does not mean Lamar is not going to go out there and outplay him on Sunday, because that is very much a possibility. He's one of the few guys who can outplay Mahomes in a playoff game.
Yeah, and he gives you an element that Mahomes only kind of does, which is that run threat. The Ravens use Lamar as a quarterback designed run threat in the way that the Chiefs typically don't, and that has a gravitational pull on a defense unlike any other. So Lamar was excellent in the second half against Houston, a little more up and down in that first half. Mahomes was excellent throughout that game against Buffalo, against a admittedly super overmanned or undermanned, outmatched defense.
Yeah.
But I mean, as Lamar told us Wednesday, this is a heavyweight fight. I don't know what else you could possibly want more from a quarterback matchup than this.
Yeah. All right. Running back, you've got Isaiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire going up against the 3-headed monster of Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and Dalvin Cook. It's one of those memes, Jonas, where you have the 3 monsters and the third one is the one making a silly face, and that's Dalvin Cook. Who would you give the edge to between the running back tandems of each team?
Normally, I think I would give the edge to Kansas City, just because we have seen Isaiah Pacheco do really well this year, and it's. I feel like we're equivocating here because the Ravens obviously had the NFL's best run game this year, led the league. in rushing yards per game. But so much of that is scheme. So much of that is Lamar. So much of that is the offensive line. Gus Bus, Justice Hill have been good this year. I don't think they've hit the greatness that Pacheco has shown, especially toward the back half of the season.
Yeah.
But my hesitation with giving the nod to Kansas City is seeing Isaiah Pacheco land on that injury report with a toe slash ankle injury. I believe it was, ankle slash toe. And if I'm a running back, I don't feel great about throwing myself headlong into a Ravens defense with a toe injury, much less an ankle injury.
Much less both.
Yeah, he relies on that physicality. He relies on that speed, and modern medicine can do a lot, but if you don't have that power or you don't have that fear factor, then you're just another guy. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire doesn't really move the needle. The Chiefs are okay with passing the ball to those running backs, but neither is a Christian McCaffrey type threat. So I just think that this is about pretty much a toss-up when it comes to which group, as currently constructed, would you rather have?
Yeah, Pacheco rushing for 935 yards this season, 9 rushing touchdowns, 4.6 yards per carry, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire season low, or career lows, I should say, for the season, 223 rushing yards and just 1 touchdown. But both these guys, I do think, are actual weapons in the passing game, at least more so than Gus Edwards and Justice Hill have proven to be, except for that one game that Justice Hill caught 5 passes. I think that was the Week 18 game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When,
or the Week 17 game.
17 game. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the edge I think that they get in the pass game, I would go Chiefs here for having the edge in the running game. So that's Chiefs too for each of us, having the edge in 2 categories. But I think things are going to change pretty quickly, especially when we talk about wide receivers. Rashee Rice, the rookie for the Chiefs, has been great, especially coming on late in the season. 2nd round pick in the 2023 draft, 938 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. His 2 best games were Week 18 and the wild card round, where he combined for 257 yards in those 2 games. They have Justin Watson. They have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, whose name I always struggle with. And then the Ravens, of course, they've got Zay Flowers. They've got OBJ. They've got Rashad Bateman. They've got Nelson Aguilar. 4 guys that are pretty healthy and may not have one guy that's going to go off for 150 yards, but combined, they will put together a pretty solid performance.
All guys who have dropped the ball this year, literally and figuratively, but not as much as Kansas City.
Yeah.
That is the big elephant in the room in all this. And when we talk about how Patrick Mahomes does under pressure, the splits are not good. But in talking with some people yesterday, a lot of those picks that he has thrown, or at least a couple of those picks that he has thrown under pressure, are because he's hit Kadarius Toney in the hands, and Kadarius Toney says, "No, I don't want it. Here you go, Brian Branch. Take it back to the end zone."
I can't believe he has time to say all that while the play is unfolding.
He's not doing a lot of concentrating on catching the ball. Yeah, I mean, as you've talked about often this year, the Ravens do not have that prototypical wide receiver 1, but they have a lot of really good receivers. They will be challenged by this Chiefs cornerback group, but if Lamar buys the time, if Lamar is accurate and in sync with these guys, then you feel a lot better about what they can do compared to what Kansas City can do.
Yeah, and then in the tight end department, Travis Kelce, of course, is future Hall of Famer. Lamar Jackson said he was talking about Patrick Mahomes, but he could say the same for Travis Kelce as well. He's been phenomenal. 34 years old, and he almost had 1,000-yard season this year, 5 touchdowns. It's his first sub 1,000-yard season since 2015, and those 5 touchdowns are the fewest he's had since 2019. Granted, he did play just 15 regular season games. He is still one of the best tight ends in the NFL, if not the best tight end in the NFL. But on the other side, the Ravens can get Mark Andrews back, and it's looking like they will. Pair that with Isaiah Likely, who came on so strong at the end of the year. You like that tandem, and it feels like this is close to even, and maybe even give the Ravens the slight edge here.
Yeah, I give them the edge because, and this is a name that we have not said often enough this year, and that is a failing on our part, but Patrick Ricard is a dude. He is a fullback by title, but the way that the Ravens line him up along the line of scrimmage in space, he is essentially a blocking tight end. And I think he is the best blocking tight end on the field, maybe the best blocking tight end remaining in the playoffs. And considering what Kansas City cannot do as a run defense, I think you put in Isaiah Likely, who's been just by all the nerd stats, basically the most effective receiver in the NFL, most effective tight end in the NFL when targeted since Mark Andrews left that Week 11 game. He's like second in yards per catch behind only George Kittle. I think he has the second most touchdowns at that tight end spot. He's been coming on strong. Mark Andrews, we don't know where on that spectrum of 0 to 100% he will be, but at least he gives you another weapon in the red zone.
Yeah.
I think just considering all that, considering Travis Kelce is going to be going from running away from AJ Klein to running probably stride for stride with Kyle Hamilton, with Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith. I just think that even though Kelce is generational, even though he has that just incredible mind meld connection with Patrick Mahomes, I think just considering the depth of this Ravens group and the ways that they can hurt you, run game, pass game, in script, off script, I give them the slight edge.
I'm fascinated to see exactly what the Ravens do offensively with Andrews and Likely, because we know Greg Roman probably relied a little too heavily on that 2 tight end set, and the Ravens have gone away from that a lot under Todd Monken this year. But they're 2 valuable weapons to have out there, and Isaiah Likely is showing he's maybe the 3rd most valuable weapon on this team when everybody's healthy. So it's going to be interesting to see what the game plan involves. All right. Offensive line, Jonas. Joe Thuney's absence cannot be overstated for the Chiefs if they are missing him. Ravens, pass blocking has not been otherworldly this season, and we've had to see, some time off for Morgan Moses, some snap counts for Morgan Moses and Ronnie Stanley. Who would you give the edge to between these two?
I think it's even for me. I think normally I would give the edge to the Chiefs because even though they are not a great run block team, they haven't run the ball as often as maybe they should. They finished first in the NFL this year in pass block win rate. A lot of that, though, is because of that strong interior, or what was a strong interior. Creed Humphrey, outstanding center. Trey Smith, really good right guard. But, you think about that left guard spot, the pectoral muscle is responsible for adducting the arm like this. I don't know that you can play if you can't raise your arm like that. So to lose an all-pro like that, especially considering the beef and the meat and the muscle that is going to be opposite that line in the interior, Justin Madubuike, Nick Allegretti, a more than competent backup, as Jay Binkley told us, but still, I think Joe Thuney didn't miss a snap all year until week 18. That is a lot of familiarity in passing off stunts and twists and pass rush games. To throw a new guy in there with M&T Bank Stadium rocking, with everything that Mike McDonald does before the snap, it is a huge, huge problem.
So I have the Ravens having the edge here. Would you agree, or do you have it closer to even?
I have it even, just because we have seen that variance. We have seen John Simpson struggle. We have seen Ryan Stanley struggle. Kevin Zeitler missed practice Thursday with a rest, but he gave up a couple pressures early, and that knee clearly is not all the way back. So I think it's, again, another toss-up here.
Yeah. All right. Switching over to the defensive line. Chris Jones is otherworldly as a nose tackle, defensive tackle. 10.5 sacks, the number 6 interior defensive lineman in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. And then on the outside, George Karlaftis, former first-round pick, he is the number 64 defensive end. He's racked up 10.5 sacks as well. They have a very strong defensive line, but talk about the Ravens defensive line that has Justin Madubuike and a revitalized Jadeveon Clowney and a revitalized Kyle Van Noy, and Michael Pierce is a run stuffer. It's going to be a great matchup, I think, between these two DLs.
Yeah, and the Chiefs, we talked about how injuries have affected the offensive line. Derek Nottie, an important run stuffer for them, missed the Bills game, didn't practice Wednesday. Doesn't look like he's going to be available for this. The Chiefs, for as much pressure as they brought with that front, especially Chris Jones, will probably be the best pass rusher on the field on Sunday. 27th in run DVOA. We saw the Bills just push them around in that first half in Buffalo. Chris Jones didn't look all that interested in stopping the run, and here comes an even better rushing attack. So I give the edge to the Ravens. They look healthier. They just completely dominated the line of scrimmage against Houston. I think we mentioned it on that Saturday pod, but like
Yeah.
the Texans averaged less than a yard before contact per carry, and that was because even with the Ravens playing those light boxes, they just could not find any running lanes. The Ravens are strong, they're healthy, they're limber. I don't know if you can say the same thing about this Chiefs defensive line.
It did take the Ravens a while to wear down that Texans defensive line, I will say, because they were not running the ball particularly well in the first half. And of course, the defensive line of the Texans was getting home and sacking Lamar 3 times in the first half. It wasn't until the Ravens really recommitted to the run in the second half that they had ripped off those long time extending drives, touchdown drives in the second half. So it took them a while, but that's what you hope your offensive line does, is just outlast a defensive line to the point where you're wearing them down and you're ripping off big runs on the defensive side. All right, linebacking core. It's tough to pick against Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith here. However, the Chiefs do have some nice players there. Nick Bolton, Willie Gay. They've got a solid linebacking crew, but Ravens might have the best in the NFL.
Yeah, an all-pro in Roquan, a Pro Bowler in Patrick Queen, Willie Gay. The athletic guy of that Chiefs core left that Bills game with a neck injury, limited in practice Wednesday, which is maybe a good sign that he'll be able to go and be the dude who shadows Lamar on Sunday. But this is probably one of the easiest calls of this entire exercise.
Yeah, Leo Chenal, also a good linebacker for them. But yeah, you just can't pick against those two. Defensive backs. Trent McDuffie is the top defensive back for the Chiefs. They also have L'Jarius Sneed, Justin Reed back there. Getting Marlon Humphrey back for the Ravens would be big. But even without him, we've talked about time and time again, they've had to play without Marlon Humphrey for extended amounts of time this season. And it's been the play of Brandon Stevens, Ronald Darby, Geno Stone that has stepped up. And of course, Kyle Hamilton is going to get probably a lot of playing time across from Travis Kelce in this game.
Yeah, I think the best defensive back on the field will be Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs have the best top 2 when it comes to Trent McDuffie, all-pro slot guy, L'Jarius Sneed. Didn't allow a touchdown in coverage this year. But you look at the depth, you look at the injuries. Mike Edwards, their starting safety, left that game against Buffalo early with a neck injury. The Ravens have the depth to throw in a Geno Stone if they need to. They finished the season as the NFL's pass defense. A lot of that was because they just did not allow guys to be open. They plaster these wide receivers when quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes break coverage. It's a very talented Kansas City group. It marries well with what they do pass rush wise, but I just think when you look at what the Ravens have, especially if Marlon Humphrey comes back, you have to give them at least a slight edge.
Yeah, I would give the Ravens the edge here too. Special teams and coaching are our final 2 categories. Special teams wise, Harrison Butker, solid kicker. Tommy Townsend, great name for a punter. Richie James is their punt returner. And then, of course, on the Ravens side, Justin Tucker, Jordan Stout, Devin Duvernay. Can't pick against Justin Tucker in the playoffs. Can you, Jonas?
You can't, but Harrison Butker is a nice little kicker himself.
He's solid.
Made 14 in a row. Didn't really seem all that bothered by the elements in Buffalo.
Will Justin Tucker be distracted by Taylor Swift up in the suites? He's a big Swiftie. He said so himself.
I don't think he will be. Personally.
He's got a lot of downtime on the sidelines. Maybe he's just peeking up there and
got the binoculars. I think the Ravens did not cover themselves. Their punt team did not cover themselves in glory. Saturday against Houston, if you want to be charitable, you can say that the Ravens were just getting a stinker out of the way, and that there's no way that Jordan Stout and that punt coverage team will be as bad as they were. But Chiefs were a very good special teams unit, 5th in DVOA. The Ravens were 3rd at the end of the regular season. So considering just like how many times it looks like there are these running lanes on kickoffs and punt returns, it still gives me a little bit unease if I were Chris Horton in charge of the special teams group for the Ravens. So I think it's a toss-up here. I can't give either team an edge and feel totally confident about it.
I give the Ravens a slight edge here. And finally, coaching. Wow, what a coaching matchup we have here. Not just at the head coach level, but the coordinators as well. Of course, you have the mentor-mentee storyline with John Harbaugh and Andy Reid coming from the Andy Reid coaching tree in Philadelphia. You've got Matt Nagy, who may have flamed out as an NFL head coach, but he's still a very solid offensive coordinator. Steve Spagnuolo as the defensive coordinator. And then 2 assistant coaches on the Ravens sideline who could be getting head coaching jobs in Mike McDonald and Todd Monken?
Initially, I was leaning in that direction. I was leaning in the Ravens' direction.
Okay.
We saw Andy Reid have another fumble, so to speak, with his clock management against Buffalo.
He's known to do that.
Yeah, we saw John Harbaugh finally ratchet up that aggressiveness.
On fourth down.
Yeah,
I love it.
Going for it, and it pays off. Trusting these guys, trusting this offense to be able to move the chains. Third and short, fourth and short. But for the same reasons that I think we both went with Mahomes over Lamar, that is why I'm going with the Chiefs in this one.
Yeah.
Because Andy Reid, even though he's only had a week to prepare for this Ravens defense, I'm sure he will have something creative. I'm sure he will have something new and cutting edge to kind of break tendencies and challenge this Ravens defense in perhaps a way that they haven't been. You look at Steve Spagnuolo's track record. This Chiefs defense over the years has not been a great regular season defense, but then you throw them in the playoffs and they just really ratchet up that level of play. We've seen them take their game, I think, even to another level in this playoff season. We know what Mike McDonald can do. We know what Todd Monken can do. We know how good John Harbaugh has been in playoff runs in the past, but track record wins out here. I give the advantage to the Chiefs.
2 Super Bowl rings are better than 1. That's why I picked the Chiefs here in this category. All right, so you add up all the edges that we have given to the different units here. I finished with 7 for the Ravens and 3 for the Chiefs. You picked a few evens. I like to take hardline stances and be bold, but I guess if you want to hedge your bets, that's fine. So
that's what I admire about your politics.
Thank you. Yeah, I pick one way and I stick to it. I'm not a flip flopper, Jonas.
We do not have the John Kerry of podcasting here. We I went with Ravens 5, Chiefs 2. So that reflects when I looked at that afterward. It reflects how I feel about this game. I feel confident about the Ravens winning this. Not to spoil our predictions, but I just think that barring a whole lot of Chiefs magic, the Ravens should feel good. In a lot of ways, I strangely feel better about the Ravens' chances going into this game than I did going into the Texans game.
So that's the perspective in Baltimore, but we wanted to get some perspective of how Chiefs fans and how Chiefs media members are feeling about the Chiefs coming into the AFC Championship game. And for that, we caught up with Jay Binkley of 610 Sports Radio AM out in Kansas City. He hosts the Chiefs post-game show on the radio, so he knows quite a lot about that team. And my first question for him was just how Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid seem to keep getting the better of the Buffalo Bills and just seem to keep doing it all in the playoffs.
Yeah, they like it. I mean, they like it. I mean, they literally loved going to Buffalo. It was a very hostile environment, and they cherished that, and they reveled it. And Patrick Mahomes is a guy that's a better quarterback on the road. That was the national narrative last week was, what's Mahomes going to do playing a road playoff game? Well, he's already done it because he played the Buccaneers in Tampa in the Super Bowl in their home stadium. But he's better on the road. He's got a 4% completion percentage better on the road. He's got 19 more touchdowns on the road. He's got a quarterback rating of 107 on the road, 99 at home. He's got 1,642 yards more passing on the road in just 2 more games. But they love getting on the road. Buffalo, I heard a great breakdown yesterday as NFL Network or something. They were talking about with the Buffalo Bills. And, it's fine that the Chiefs seem to be this obstacle for the Buffalo Bills. But, right there in the window here's Joe Burrow, here's Lamar Jackson, and maybe C.J. Stroud. I mean, there's other quarterbacks to worry about now. So they kind of let that window kind of slip. The Chiefs have been a little bit down offensively from the team that they're used to seeing. They get the Kansas City Chiefs at home, and they let it slip through their fingers. Baltimore doesn't seem like a team that wants to do that.
Jay, reporting earlier today on Wednesday that the prospects of Joe Thuney lining up for Sunday's game are looking kind of slim. How big a loss would that be for Kansas City, considering maybe how this Ravens defense is vulnerable, and what are the options if you can't go?
It'd be huge. Ed Oliver for the Bills has had a pressure every game the last 2 years. He didn't have a single pressure this past weekend against the Bills. Joe Thuney is a first-team All-Pro. He's the only guy in National Football League history that started the Super Bowl his first 3 years when he was with the Patriots. No other player has ever done that. So he's got that big game experience. Mahomes and that offensive line just rely on what Joe Thuney does. But there's a guy that stepped in for him, Nick Allegretti, who's been around this team for a while. And they went ahead and signed him again for another contract. He's a guy that could play center, guard, but they've got a lot of trust in him. And he would be a guy, he's one of those guys that likes to step up, and just prove, and he just keeps proving the coaching staff because they don't joke around with the offensive line. It's something that Andy Reid takes very seriously because he used to be an O-line coach. And he's no Joe Tooney. He's not, but can he show up and shine for, 4 quarters in a football game? Probably so, because this defense of the Ravens, and I know Buffalo, he had a good defense earlier on this year, was injured, a lot of injuries that they had, but they haven't seen anything like this Ravens defense.
Speaking of that Ravens defense against the Chiefs offense, obviously you have Travis Kelce as probably the main focus of defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald this week. Outside of him, though, Rashee Rice has had a very good rookie season. He was really coming on near the very end of the season. He had those back-to-back games in Week 18 and then the divisional round where he's putting up combined 250 receiving yards. Would he be number 2 on your game plan if you're game planning against the Chiefs to be really worried about in the passing game?
Yeah, I think so. And the Chiefs have needed that. He had over 100 targets this year, was second on the team in targets behind Travis. But he's emerged. And, I think when people look back at the draft last year, they'll say the Chiefs got it right with Rashee Rice. Matter of fact, he's number 2 in the NFL in receptions and yards from rookie receivers. Only Puka Nacua has more receptions and yards than Rashee Rice. He's number 2. The Chiefs they drafted 5 out of 7 defensive players. The year before, they go 7 out of defensive players. And obviously, having the second-ranked defense is kind of shown the fruits of that labor that they put together. But he's been great, and he's built that trust. And Mahomes worked him out before the season, and I think a lot of teams will try this. They had him go work out in Camp Pat, we call it, down in Texas, where, you get visits with these guys, but then Patrick is there, and he works on that chemistry, and he's like, realize this is a guy with good chemistry. He had 96 catches last year at SMU, and number 2 on the team on that SMU Mustangs team had 38 catches. And then 27. So he did like everything. I mean, the Chiefs draft people for a reason. For instance, Mahomes at Texas Tech, they had 128th ranked scoring defense. That was dead last in college football at that team because there's only 128 teams. So we had to have this mental aptitude of going out and scoring a touchdown every single time, and that was very appealing to the Chiefs. Well, the same thing with Rice, because he did everything with that SMU team. They're like, okay, we like how this guy keeps getting stronger. We like his leadership. We like how things don't bother him. So, but he, as far as the year ended, he ended up number 2 in the NFL for rookie wide receivers, they say, in catches and yards. And that's great. I mean, you look at all those Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison and all these other receivers that were taken. Yeah, everybody missed on Puka. Even the Rams can't really claim it because they had 4 rounds where they didn't draft him. So everybody missed on him.
Jay, is the sense around the team, around the city, that because of this Mahomes magic, as long as other players on this team, especially this offense, literally don't drop the ball, Kansas City should feel good about how Sunday might go?
Yeah, I mean, they know what to do. They know what to expect in those situations, and they're extremely difficult to beat by more than double digits. I mean, they're extremely disciplined in what they do, and a lot of people don't realize it, but Mahomes in his career, in 6 years as a starter, only has 4 games, and then one of those was in the Super Bowl against the Bucs, where he's lost by more than 1 score. I mean, there's quarterbacks that get beat by 10 points, 13 points, whatever, all the time. He doesn't. He's only had 4 instances, and only once this year, despite everything that when the Chiefs were looking down at different times of the season, nobody put him away. I mean, Denver did when he had the flu. He had the flu in a road game in Denver, and that's when they beat the Chiefs by more than 1 score. But he keeps this team in it. They're just so disciplined on what they do, and they'll change who and what they are. And I'll be honest with you guys, they've really had to change completely who they were, because this was an offensive team that, push the defense around the last couple of years and did whatever they want, scoring 30 points a game. But they had to figure out they're different now. They're playing defense, number 2 scoring defense in the NFL. They're able to run the ball with Isaiah Pacheco. It's shorter passes. It's yards after the catch like Rashee Rice. They just had to be different. It's not going to be light up the scoreboard anymore. And the team they remind me of was the Patriots. How early on it was about defense with that team. And they played to their strengths, and that was their core. That was their MO of who and what they were. And then they became an offensive show with Wes Welker and Randy Moss, even though they didn't win a title with them. and then it was back to defense. So you have to find out who and what you are. And the Chiefs last 3 games had figured out who they were. On Christmas Day was their low point where they kind of hit rock bottom when the Raiders came in and kind of pushed them around and were more physical than the Chiefs. And they've been a different team since that day.
It's funny because that Christmas Day was probably the height of the Ravens season, because that was also the day that they went to San Francisco and beat the 49ers. I just cannot wait for this matchup. I mean,
hey, man, that was a great game. I remember talking about how the wrong team was favored in that game. And see, the Ravens are a little bit like the Chiefs, man. You disrespect them. You give them that chip on the shoulder. That's the last thing you want to do. It's like Mahomes is 9-1-1 as the underdog.
Incredible.
9-1-1. Some teams love the Chiefs love this stuff. Like they read everything. They don't talk a lot of smack, but they'll read about it and it motivates them.
It's a lot of similarities between these two teams, and something's got to give on Sunday between these two teams. Jay Binkley at 3 Guys in a Garage on Twitter. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was the original. As the original show name, we actually did a show in a garage. There was 3 of us, so it was very creative. 3 Guys in a Garage, and I just kept it because it's like, you know what? Maybe I'll end up back there someday anyway, so it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, we're just 2 guys in a press room at this point. So Jay Binkley of 6:10 a.m. out in Kansas City, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your insight.
Guys, let's have a great game. We'll talk to you later.
All right, Jonas, let's get into our full game preview for the AFC Championship game on Sunday at 3 o'clock at M&T Bank Stadium. Right now, the line is Ravens -3.5. The over-under is 44.5. 1 seed against the 3 seed. Last time these two teams met, we touched on it on our last episode, but it was in 2021 week 2. That was a barn burner. That was an electric game. These are 2 very different teams since then. Chiefs defense, I think, is a lot better than it was that season, and I think this Ravens offense is a lot better. What, if anything, can you glean from that game or rewatching that game?
Well, I think if we want to start, maybe flip things around and start with the Ravens offense versus Chiefs defense. I wonder if we will see a repeat of that 2021 rushing performance. The Ravens ran 41 times for 251 yards. That's over 6 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. And that was the Chiefs run defense that finished the year decently. This is not a decent Chiefs run defense.
Who was the starting running back for the Ravens in that game?
Mr. Tyson Williams.
There it is.
Latavius Murray was his backup.
Yeah.
Alejandro Villanueva was at left tackle, I believe. Maybe at right tackle. Patrick McCarry was on the other side. I don't think that Steve Spagnuolo would tolerate that kind of running up the scoreness. Obviously, that was a competitive game through the end. The Ravens needed every single one of those yards to get the win, to get to the finish line.
Game. Yeah.
So if the Ravens finish with those kind of numbers, it's probably because they've just sat on the Chiefs all game and just salted away a victory. But I do think that is a worthy, memory point. It's a different coordinator, as you said. The Ravens have been more pass happy than ever under Lamar Jackson this year. But I still think there is a possibility that the Ravens just run wild.
In terms of Lamar against the blitz, he had a bad first half of that game. He had a not so great first half of the Texans game when he was facing the blitz. He flipped a switch in that Texans game at halftime and was able to figure things out. But against the Chiefs, you can't really afford to have too many wasted possessions. You can't afford to have a trial period for the first 3 or 4 possessions where you're still figuring it out and you're not picking up yards and you're punting after 1 or 2 first downs. How can the Ravens avoid that? And how can they fix their blitz pickup faster in this game than they did against the Texans?
That is going to be the big question. That is going to be the soft spot of this game, because people rightly pointed out after that Texans game that if the Ravens defense did not come to play in that first half, it might have been a wildly different halftime score. It might have been a wildly different game, because that second quarter was a bit of a lurch for the Ravens. It was a bit of a struggle. Steve Spagnuolo, we know he likes to blitz. I think the Chiefs finished 5th in the NFL in blitz rate. They are creative. They will send guys from every level of this defense. A couple of their defensive backs have multiple sacks on the year. The good thing is that Lamar has seemingly figure things out. Just big picture wise, obviously, there will be stretches where he struggles, where he is not aligned with Todd Monken and maybe what needs to be done, or Todd Monken and the Ravens aren't choosing the right things to be done. But the Chiefs love to blitz with their defensive backs. Lamar,
So did the Ravens.
ever since the Ravens got back from their bye, has been great. I mean, great against DB blitzes. I think it's like 158 passer rating. You can only get to 158.3 passer rating. So I would feel pretty good about that. I would feel pretty good about just where he's been over these past month, 2 months against the blitz. There is that degree of variance that I'm sure the Chiefs will try to introduce by blitzing him, because Lamar with a 4-man pass rush, excellent. Lamar versus the blitz, higher ceiling, lower floor. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what kind of pressure the Chiefs bring and how often they bring it.
I can't wait for Trent McDuffie, Kyle Hamilton, and Arthur Mollett to lead this game on both sides in sacks. On the other side of things, how do you feel like this Ravens defense and this Ravens pass rush can affect Patrick Mahomes? Because he has not been as good a quarterback against the blitz. And I know that's every quarterback struggles against the blitz. Their numbers are down. That's just how it is. That's why you blitz a quarterback and you rush him. But Mahomes, especially, it feels like he has been affected by it.
Yeah, and not just him, but I think the receiving game as well, the targets that he is looking for as well. Wrote about it for a story on Wednesday. Patrick Mahomes, when he's been pressured this year, I think it's under 50% completion percentage, more interceptions than touchdowns, a minuscule yards per attempt. Some of those interceptions were the result of him, trying to elude a guy, bounces off Kadarius Toney's hands, MVS's hands, goes
Drops.
to
Yeah,
just drops that have killed them. But with Joe Thuney out and the Ravens, I think, having the edge at the edge, this is not a great group of bookend tackles protecting Patrick Mahomes. I do think that the Ravens will have the manpower necessary, the creativity necessary to put Patrick Mahomes in this bad spot. So I think it just comes down to, how are the Chiefs going to try to attack this Ravens defense on early downs? Are they going to go with these heavy formations that work so well against the Bills, or will they try to spread things out, give Patrick Mahomes more guys to target so that he can get the ball up quicker against what probably will be a ferocious pass rush? It's going to be a fascinating game from an X's and O's perspective.
And then pre-snap motion is another big thing as well, because we've seen the Ravens use that effectively on the offensive end, especially when you get a speedy guy like Zay Flowers to kind of give your quarterback some tells about the opposing defense. But the Chiefs use it effectively very well as well.
Yeah, I think what the Ravens have seen for the past month, 2 months with these Shanahan-style offenses, this is obviously not a Shanahan-style offense. This is a Andy Reid original. But like a Sean McVay, like a Kyle Shanahan, there is a lot of motion, there's a lot of screens, and the Ravens have seen that way too often over the past 2 months to not be prepared.
Yeah.
And they have been excellent stopping them. Mahomes led the league by far this year in the number of throws behind the line of scrimmage, which are usually going to be screen passes, maybe some shovel passes. The Ravens were the third best team in the NFL defensively against those kind of throws, just 4.2 yards per attempt. Mahomes was 6 yards per attempt, which is pretty good for throws behind the line of scrimmage. The pre-snap motion, the Chiefs were, Patrick Mahomes was third in the number of dropbacks with pre-snap motion. He was good with it. 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, a very healthy 8.4 yards per attempt. The motion gives him more time to throw, bamboozles the defense when it's used effectively. But again, Ravens' second best defense in the NFL by EPA per dropback against motion, third in success, right? So all the buttons that Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes like to click to get defenses out of sorts, to stretch them thin, the Ravens have shown time and time again they know what to do.
Something has got to give in this game. This is going to be just a fascinating matchup. Let's get into our score predictions, Jonas. I have the Ravens coming out with the victory here, but by the exact same margin of victory that they had in 2021 week 2. 1 point. I've got the Ravens 27 and the Chiefs 26. I think the Chiefs get the ball with a chance to come down the field and tie the game in the final minute. Mahomes does so. He orchestrates a touchdown drive.
Taylor Swift is cheering
She's going crazy.
Luxury suite.
It's passes to Travis Kelce for the touchdown. He blows some more kisses. no snowballs this time, and Andy Reid decides to go for the win and 2 on the road because M&T Bank Stadium has been rocking all day and it's cold and they just want to get this win, and they don't get it. And I don't know if it's Kyle Hamilton. I don't know if it's Brandon Stevens. I don't know if it's Michael Pierce. I think somebody gets a key pass breakup in the end zone and prevents the Chiefs from taking the lead and the win. The Ravens sneak out a 1-point victory, 27-26. I just think they're the better team. They're the slightly better team, but you can't count out Mahomes.
What I'm just realizing about this pod, have we said the word Super Bowl once?
Not once. Don't say
we should probably say it. We're not going to jinx anything.
No, but this is like the 2000 Ravens that refused to say playoffs until they made it. You know,
this is for the Super Bowl. Spoiler alert.
What?
We have seen Lamar be locked in. We've seen this defense be locked in. We know how tough this crowd can make things for opposing quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, I don't know why you went on the Manning cast and said that you don't like playing in Baltimore. I'm sure the Ravens
didn't know this was going to happen.
I know.
But when was that?
It was during a Manning cast game earlier in the season.
Yeah, it was like 8 weeks ago.
I know. But like Lamar doesn't give that kind of red meat to opposing crowds.
He doesn't take that rat poison, as Nick Saban would say.
By the way, I asked John Harbaugh if he had a similar term for rat poison. He did not.
He did not. No, that's
I just think that this is a potentially generationally good Ravens team. That doesn't mean that they're infallible. We've seen them blow games in weird ways, even at home. But I just feel good about what this Ravens team can do. I feel good about where they are injury-wise. I feel bad about where the Chiefs are injury-wise. I think it's going to be a Ravens win. I don't know if it'll be comfortable. I'm picking 28-20. Maybe that's the Ravens score late to distance themselves from Kansas City. Maybe it's the Ravens go up early and the Chiefs get a kind of superficial touchdown to make it a little bit closer. But I just think that offense, defense, special teams, and tangibles, there's not a lot of areas where you can say Kansas City should feel absolutely good about exploiting any kind of leverage that they have.
How offsides would a Chiefs wide receiver have to be for Patrick Mahomes to acknowledge that it was the correct call and not complain to the refs about a flag being thrown? Is it a yard past the line of scrimmage? I'm just imagining a scenario in the last play of the game where MVS is like 2 yards off the ball.
I like this version of the podcast where we are radicalizing Patrick Mahomes as the ultimate complainer, the ultimate.
He really shouldn't have thrown that flag there. All right, that just about does it for our episode today. We will have a post-game podcast after the AFC Championship game on Sunday. Exciting stuff. Please like, review, rate, subscribe. If you give us a good review on Apple Podcasts, we will read it out on the podcast. At Jonas_Shaffer is his Twitter handle. I am at Paul Mancano and at All Banner Sports. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. I just flipped the name card, so everybody thought I was Jonas Shaffer for a second,
nice.
But we're back. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. And of course, please subscribe to the Baltimore Banner. $1 for 6 months. Jonas and Gianna Hahn and Kyle Goon and myself have articles for you about every aspect of this Ravens team. Been covering them since well before training camp. And the storylines are now all coming to a head. And it really could not be a more exciting time to be a Ravens fan. For Jonas, I'm Paul. Thanks so much to everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.